Welcome, everyone. This is Coach David. I am a little out of breath because I was trying to fix our internet so I could get this training to you. Okay. Now, every year on October 1st, right, for the last 2 years, we have been waiting and waiting and waiting for the new FAFSA, and it did not come out, right? This year, it opened a couple days early. Now, with that being said, there is some news I want to share with you guys about kind of like what's happening with it. Let's kind of get straight into it, right? So thank you guys for joining me. It is October 1st, right? If you guys can go ahead and put your student's grade in the chat, that's greatly appreciated. I see a bunch of people that have done it. We have 2029s, we have freshmen, we have seventh graders, we have seniors, we have 11th graders with triplets. Yikes, right? That's three college tuitions at once, right? We probably need to talk. But today we're going to be talking about the new FAFSA. I'm going to walk you through some things, right? And make sure that you guys are on the right track. Okay. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of a overview, right, of what we're going to cover. First, we're going to go over financial aid news. Then we're going to go over the new FAFSA. Now, I know it's October 1st. I know that there's seniors in here, but here is my advice right now. Don't do it now. Wait, please stop. I will tell you why later. Okay. So if you made your account, great. Stop. Don't do anything. Don't touch it. Right. We are going to be talking about kind of like what there is to kind of look forward to or not look forward to really in this particular case. Now, for those of you guys that are meeting me for the first time, right, my name is Coach David. I'm a former law school and college admission reader, right? And I used to work as a lawyer, right? But now I do college admissions and financial aid, and I'm ready to save your family money. Okay. Now, in financial aid news, for those of you that keep up on world kind of news, right? There is a government shutdown happening right now. Now, there wasn't really a change to the opening of FAFSA. It actually opened a little bit early, right? But, right, the kind of new piece of information that's coming out is that this might be the last kind of like last dance for the Department of Education, right? They first, right, the new administration tried to dismantle it, months ago, right? A judge blocked that, right, and returned people to work, right? But there is a huge furlough of employees that are being kind of basically said like they're not going to work right now, right? So since July, there have been 1,600 people from the Department of Education that have been let go. That is about close to 40% of their workforce, right? Now, specifically for the FAFSA, it's the Office of Federal Student Aid that is the important part of that kind of puzzle, right? There are 747 employees in the Office of Federal Student Aid. 632 of them have been furloughed, right? Means that they are not working right now. What does this mean for the FAFSA? It means that there's going to be problems. There's going to be no one to fix it, right? And there's going to be more delays, right? So thank you, government, right? Whatever side of the aisle you're on, right? But it is kind of like thanks for another fun year that we're going to have because last year delays. There was like millions of articles about what was happening with financial aid, right? Again, it was not a fun time, right? This next year doesn't look like it's going to be fun again. They literally let go of, I don't even know what the math is, right? 632 of 747, right? A lot, right? So probably close to about 85% of people have been furloughed at this point. Okay. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I will keep you updated, but that is one of the reasons why I'm telling you to wait. If there are problems, you're not going to be able to talk to anybody, right? There's literally like what 100 people working right now, right? And if you thought the wait times to talk to a financial aid representative on at the Office of Federal Student Aid was long now, well, let's see how long it becomes. Okay. And there's a lot of people that call for different reasons. Maybe their social security isn't matching up, right? Their legal name changed, or this or that, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things that could have happened, but there's sometimes you need to be able to get in touch with people, right? But with this like kind of like slashing government shutdown, and again, we don't know how long it's going to go on for, right? I expect that there's going to be more and more delays. Okay. Now, really quickly, right? I do want to make sure that this message gets out there, right? Now, realistically, for our 2026 families, right? The ones that have signed up, we're going to be able to help you. But from now moving forward, realistically, there isn't much we can do, right? Definitely we can help you with financial aid if you haven't touched anything, right? Again, if your student needs a kind of like a one-off thing for their applications, right? We might be able to help. But we are now in the mode of getting students ready for the following years. So if you do want to book a free 15-minute assessment with our college admissions advisors, right, you can text us at 949-775-0865. You just text book. Our team will reach out to you to figure out a time that works. right? You can also book it on your own by scanning this QR code, okay? So just please, please, please make sure you're reaching out, right? Again, we have options for all grade levels, right? We have students that start with us in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. But just know this, the earlier that you start with us, the more that we can help, okay? Now, we're going to go into the new FAFSA, right? This is the student side, okay? Now, a lot of people might be asking, why don't you show us the parent side? Well, unfortunately, I clicked the wrong button and I accidentally submitted it. So I need to wait for this to process and then I need to delete it and then go into the parent side so that I can show you guys that side, right? But I'm going to be going through the form today, okay? I'm going to be showing you kind of exactly what it looks like, right? Now, does the form look a little bit different than it did last year? Yeah, a little bit, right? There have been some changes that have happened, right? Wording, right? Things like that. But generally speaking, it looks roughly the same. But let's look over it, right? So as soon as you sign in, they're going to ask you, okay, well, who's this form for? What is this used for? They're going to give you a little bit of information, who's filling it out, right? How to invite your parents, all these different things. They're also going to talk about like how long it takes, 30 minutes, okay? Sure, right? In a perfect world, right? But for parents, it's going to probably take much longer, okay? But they're going to talk about like, the processing time for your FAFSA. This is probably also going to be delayed as well, right? Getting it sent it over to the different schools you're applying to, it's probably going to be delayed as well, right? But this is the first kind of question that we run into, and it's your state of residence, okay? Now, your state of residence, why this is important is because this gets sent to, again, if you're applying, if you're in California like I am, it's being sent to all of the UCs. If you mark that California is not your state of residence, they're going to presume that you're an out-of-state student. Okay. So for the purposes of financial aid, what does that mean? That means you're not going to get anything. Okay. So you need to answer this question correctly. Okay. The next question that they're going to have is about your marital status. Okay. Now, most of the families I've talked to, their student is currently single, right? They will mark single, never married, right? They're going to ask you what year you're going into, right? So for most of our seniors right now that are graduating for class of 2026, right, you're going to be a first year. Doesn't matter if you have college credits, you are still considered a first year student, okay? Now, there are younger students here, right? Not, like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th graders. You are not filling this out right now. This is not for you, but it's a great walkthrough of what you're going to be doing later on, okay? And then they're also going to ask when the student begins the year, will they have their bachelor's degree? For 99.999% of students, the answer is going to be no, right? And again, I know that there are students that have their associate's degree, but that is not a bachelor's degree. So you will answer no here as well, okay? They're also going to ask you about personal circumstances, right? So if any of these things apply to you, you'll go ahead and click that box, okay? They're going to ask if the student was ever at risk of being homeless, right? They're also going to ask kind of a demographic question. Now, this is a question that changed last year, okay? But they ask, before it was a gender question, right? Now it is a sex question, right? So what is the student's sex, right? So again, with any federal forms, other options, right, or non-binary options are no longer existent, right? So you only have two options, male or female, right? If you have questions about those things, definitely reach out to me. I can talk to you about them, okay? They also ask you about your race and ethnicity. Again, your gender, right, or sex, right, and your student's race and ethnicity. They make it very clear at the top. This does not affect your financial aid. It's literally just for the purposes of like survey purposes to see who's filling out the form and who is not. Okay, so don't worry about anything. They're not tracking you. They're just trying to get some data. Okay, so this is kind of the survey part. So you can answer this freely, right? They also ask about student citizenship status. Okay, so again, there's different categories, right? There's U.S. citizen, there is U.S. national, eligible non-citizen, right? So eligible non-citizen is talking about kind of those that have permanent residency. And then they have a box for neither U.S. citizen nor eligible non-citizen. This was actually different last year. Obviously, there's a lot of policy changes and a lot of kind of different rhetoric going around about immigration, right? But this previously had been named something else, including DACA recipients, but that has been taken out. Okay, so keep that in mind, right? They ask about parents' education status. We don't care, and the colleges giving you money don't care, right? So students, if you're unsure and you're going through this, just click do not know, right? Don't worry about it. It doesn't have any effect on your financial aid, right? They will also ask you about your high school completion status, right? They're going to ask you what you got. If you're homeschooled, high school diploma, none of the above, right? But obviously, for students, there are different places that take the FAFSA. There are places that require a high school diploma. There are also vocational schools that don't require those things. So that's why the none of the above is there as well. Okay. They're also going to ask about high school. Oh, we already had that one, right? They're also going to ask about how many students are in college. Okay. So again, they give you the dates, right? July 1st, 2026 to June 30th of 2027. So basically they're asking who's going to be in school next year, right? Now, the one is you, the student, right? If there's anyone else going to college at the time, right? Then you can add another one. Okay. And this is kind of one of those tricky parts that I want to make sure that we go over, right? It says, where should we send the FAFSA information? This is where you put in your schools, right? Now, one of the things that you will see here is that they say 0 out of 20 schools selected, right? Now, a lot of people might be thinking, oh my God, 20 schools? Who's applying to 20 schools, right? But for me, 20 schools, it's like, oh, that's pretty average, right? Most students in California, especially, apply to the UCs. They apply to some CSUs. And then they apply to maybe some out-of-state publics, privates, whatever it might be. So getting to 20 is not very difficult if you think about the actual numbers, right? So let's think about it, right? The UCs, there's 9 of them. Let's say you apply to 2 or 3 backups, right? In the CSU system, right? So then you have 12, right? And then let's say that you're applying to some other, private schools in California, like Santa Clara, USC, so on and so forth. Getting to 20 is not very difficult because every UC, every CSU is one line, right? So again, just adding the UCs, you'll have 9 lines of schools if you add all of them. Okay. Now, the reason I bring this up, and I just added one to show you, right? But the reason I bring this up is because a lot of students, their list is going over 20, right? So the question becomes, what do you do if your school list is going over 20? Okay. Now, this is what happens, right? You're going to have to turn in your FAFSA one time. You'll turn it in, you'll submit it, it'll get processed, and then it'll be finalized, right? Then what you need to do is go back, right? And then make a correction. You'll have to take out a bunch of the schools you already turned it into. You'll have to add your new schools in and resubmit it and then go through the processing and then it'll get finalized. Okay. So remember, it is not limiting you to 20 schools. Okay. It is just saying that you can only turn in 20 schools at a time. Okay. So each time you turn it in, the schools will get it. Once it's processed, you're good. Right. Then you can take all the schools out, add in another 20. So technically speaking, you could apply to an infinite amount of schools, right? But obviously, students aren't really doing that. But again, they might be applying to, I don't know, 25, 28 schools, possibly. Okay. So something to keep in mind there. Okay. Now, that's it. Okay. On the student side, that is literally it. Okay. So we went through everything there. Okay. Now, as far as I think there was one other thing I didn't go through. Oh, it looks like I didn't copy. They also ask about if the student is going to be filing taxes, right? Now, if your student worked, great, right? They probably didn't make enough to file taxes, but they might have, right? If they did, you would mark yes, right? And then you would have to fill out the corresponding information that they ask for, right? But most students, either their parents just kind of take their tax return and file it with them because they made under a certain amount, right? But if they did, there's going to be additional questions, and I'll definitely kind of show those later on as well. Okay. Now, again, like the parent FAFSA, sorry, I clicked the wrong button, right? So I have to wait for this to process through. So I should be able to show it to you guys next week. But again, I'll kind of see like what is more important kind of next week, and then we'll decide if we're going to show that side or show kind of other pieces of the financial aid puzzle that are important. Okay. Now, there's some quick takeaways here. And again, today's kind of training. It was supposed to be longer because, well, I was going to show you the parent side, but unfortunately I can't, right? So, but the takeaways from kind of today need to be this, right? This is not a race, right? There's a lot of stuff going on kind of in the news, in the world, right? There's going to be a lot of problems with the website. There's not going to be people to fix them. There's going to be delays, this and that, so on and so forth. What I've been telling you guys, like, since like we were kind of like almost to open date has been don't be the guinea pig. Don't do the beta. Don't do this. Don't do that. Right. And the reason is because you can wait a week or two. It's fine. Right. There is no school that is going to be like, oh, I need it turned in on October 1st. Okay. But just from, and I like to have a little, kind of, interaction. Right. But I do see that there's a lot of seniors in here, right? How many have already finished it? If you can put like a quick yes in in the kind of in the chat or in the Q&A, right? My hope is that no one did, right? Because let me just give you a story about what happened last year. Last year, right? They were like, yeah, everything's good to go. We have fixed the site. And then there was a bunch of people that came to my trainings that did it on day one, even though I told them wait, because starting 2 years ago, there was just a lot of problems. And it didn't even open on October 1st last year. I think it had opened on like late December, right? And so people were doing it kind of like during the holidays. Oh, we had one person that did it, unfortunately, right? The one thing I would probably say to do is go in and I don't know when you did it, but if it's not processed yet, try to delete it, right? And then we should talk, right? Because you might have put yourself in a very bad situation the way that you did it. So if you can go and it hasn't processed through yet, please try to delete it as soon as possible, right? Okay. But last year, when people did that, when it opened, they got stuck in limbo. They're when it's supposed to usually take about 70 or 3 business days or 72 hours to process their FAFSA was in limbo for 4, 5, 6 weeks. We couldn't get it out of limbo. I stayed on the phone starting at 8:30 in the morning, finally talked to someone at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was like, yeah, we're trying to get this unfrozen, right? Or pushed back so that we can resubmit or do this or do that. They're like, sorry, we can't do anything for you. You just have to wait, right? So for those families, right? And of course, the colleges were a little bit more understanding, right? They were kind of like, yeah, we understand that there's problems and like you might be stuck in this situation, so don't worry about it for this year. Now, I don't know how forgiving they're going to be about it this year, right? Because it's supposed to be again fixed, right? This is the third year where they say that it's fixed, but we'll see what happens. Okay. But those people, it took a lot of time and effort to get them out of there. When the families that I helped and I waited a couple weeks and did it later, I didn't have any problems with people being stuck in limbo. Okay, so give it a week or two. Let's let the rust of the lemmings kind of like run off the cliff and try to do it first, and then we'll figure out kind of like what the issues have been. Okay, because there is kind of like an issue reporting in like on the FAFSA website. It's public. So when there has been an issue and it's been fixed, they actually put it on on the FAFSA website. I forget exactly what the name of the website was, but I'll find it and I'll share it with you guys later on. Okay. All right. Now, a lot of you guys might be thinking, oh, okay, all right. Well, Coach David has shown me the student side of the FAFSA. We're going to look at the parent side of the FAFSA, and then we're going to be done, right? The answer is, well, if you're just applying to the UCs or CSUs, that's most likely the case. But if your student is applying anywhere else, this is just the first step, right? So what else is there? The CSS profile is still out there. The IDOC system is still out there. There's school-specific forms and systems, right? So there's like income verification, there's dependent verifications. Schools like Princeton have their own like FAFSA form that they want you to fill out again, even after they have you fill out the FAFSA and the CSS, right? So there's just a lot of things that are out there that need to get done. So again, this is step one, right? We're still early in the process, right? I will try to go week by week, trying to show you, hey, there's additional things, additional things, additional things, so that you guys can stay on top of those things, right? But if you have any questions, please reach out. Okay. Now, one other tip I'm going to put out there, and again, this is a big one. So you really need to be listening. If you didn't listen to anything else today, please listen to this. Okay. On the Common App, if your student is applying to any out-of-state schools, private schools, other schools other than your home state schools, right, in California, right, then you need to be very clear about this with your student, right? There is a question on the Common App for almost every single college that you will apply to. And the question is, are you planning on applying for financial aid? Okay. If you click yes, you will be considered. If you click no, you will not, right? It doesn't matter if you turn in everything, right? If you click no and then you turn in your FAFSA and you turn in your CSS and you turn in all these different things, the result is going to be that you get a big fat zero, even if you were entitled to get $50,000 because you clicked no. So make sure that your student understands, right, that they need to click yes, right? So if you want to try, right, and again, if you're in our program, we're going to save you money. But if you're doing it on your own and you want to try and at least get some money, you do need to make sure to click yes, right? Now, the follow-up question to this is always, well, Coach David, well, I don't want to lower my chances of getting into a certain college because I'm asking for money, right? Go to any school's website, right? any school you can think of, and go and look at the statistic of how many percent of their student body gets financial aid. At most schools, it's going to be above 88%, 90%. Okay. That means that every single person going there is getting financial aid. Now, I know what you're thinking, right? You're probably thinking, well, Coach David, that's probably because they just gave them loans, right? 'Cause like I told you before. And yes, that is true, right? But you have to think about what those loans mean. The loans mean that so a school offering you loans means that you turned in the FAFSA, which means that 88 to 90 to 95% of students turned in the FAFSA and they were in. Okay, so turning in your FAFSA, your CSS profile, these different pieces does not change your result. I know that there's a lot of families out there that try to use it as kind of like an excuse of why their student didn't get in. Oh, we asked for money, our student get in. Realistically, there was probably another reason, right? I'm not going to go any further, but there was probably another reason their kid didn't get in. It wasn't the money. Okay. So make sure, click yes if you're trying for financial aid. If your family is happy footing the $400,000 bill, right, for a private school, no problem, right? Anyway, I can't help you, right? But if you're looking for some help, you definitely want to click that yes button. Okay. All right, now just real quickly, timeline, right? Again, August, senior year started, right? Between now and December, that is when your college applications are going in. That is when your financial aid is going in. And then by April, college decisions and your financial aid decisions and awards are going to be out. Okay. So just keep those kind of big dates in mind and you should be fine. Okay. Now, every individual school will have separate kind of, deadlines for the things that they want you to turn in, right? For early decision, early action, sure, they have early deadlines for your financial aid. Does it really mean anything? For early decision, kind of, because you need to understand your financial situation before you decide to go to that school. But for early action, it doesn't really matter because, well, you can turn in your stuff later. Now, you might be thinking, why is Coach David telling me to turn things in later, right? Because there's a strategical advantage to turning in things later or not. Right now, if you're part of our program, we take care of that for you, figuring out what makes the most sense, right? If you're not part of that program, have a consultation with us. I can kind of tell you kind of what is going on and like what you should be doing, right? Obviously the other tips and tricks are just for our families that are in our program. Okay. Now, the last thing I ask always is please reach out to us, right? So if you are kind of like, I had the family that, that said that, yeah, you know what, we already did it, right? We were quick, right? So for that family, right, see if you can delete it, right? But for other families that have kind of started creating their accounts and things like that, don't start the form, right? If you did start the form, delete it, right? Talk to us first so we can figure out what possibilities there are for your family. Reach out to us in Facebook, Discord, email, whatever way you can so that you can make sure that you're making the best decision for your family. Okay. Now, results, right? I go over these all the time. So you guys already know, right? This family makes 350K, I saved them 30 to 40 grand, right? Over 400, I saved them $42,000 a year. And this family that made 230, I saved them $32,000 at UC Davis. Okay. Now, unfortunately, we do have a special discount, but it is only good for people that are here today live, right? So for those that aren't with here or watching the recording, right? Please reach out to us, right? We'll still try to do something for you, right? Obviously, our program is still going to be available. But if you have questions, please reach out to us at 650-860-5201. All you have to do is text money, and then our team will reach out to you. Make sure that you get on my schedule, okay? So this is more pivotal for, obviously, class of 2026, right? But class of 2027, it's also great for you because you can lock in your price at a lower price, okay? I've had a lot of consultations this past week. I've told everyone our prices are going up and they're going up starting at the end of today. Okay. So if you want to kind of lock in your price, make sure to book your consultation today. Okay. You can also book it by yourself by scanning that QR code. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the recording because those that are in kind of Facebook land or recording land, you don't get this special offer. Okay. So for those that are watching the recording, have a great night, right? And we'll talk to you again next week.